Welcome to Shallow, one podcast, two time zones, diving deep into a new topic every week. From pop culture to beauty and wellness trends, careers and ambitions, these conversations flood our WhatsApp inboxes and social media feeds. Dialing in from Sydney, Australia and London, UK, we're asking the same question. Is it really that deep?
We've all seen them, the impossibly attractive people on social media who seem to have it all, living the dream life simply because they're hot. But is beauty really a ticket to success, or are we buying into a system that ultimately keeps us trapped? Does looking our best actually make us more productive, or is it diminishing returns? In this episode, we explore whether pretty privilege is real and if we're becoming too obsessed with appearance. Let's dive in. Luce, how are you in London this week? What have you been up to?
This week's been great. The sun has been shining for, I'm not even joking, like 3 weeks now or more,
Jeez.
Which is unheard of if you live in the UK. Like it's crazy. It's actually pushing 20 degrees. I know I go on about the weather on this podcast so much, but I just think it's so important, especially if you live in London and you're British. Like we just never stop going on about it. I feel like when you're in Sydney, I feel like people just don't really care. They're just like, oh yeah, storm's coming.
Well, you know
just
what,
better go in your house.
On that is that I think people in Sydney and in Australia are actually like way more fair weather than the people back in the UK, because it's sunny a lot of the time. If it dips or gets a little bit cold, everyone's like, nah, not leaving the house. Like, it's winter in Sydney now, and like no one's doing anything because it's like 20 degrees.
Well, speaking of fair weather, I was always a fair weather swimmer. And the other day, my mum has started cold water swimming, which I know I said on a previous season that I hated cold water swimming and I hated getting in the cold water. And I was absolutely like throwing a tantrum anytime my mum was like, come to the cold water swimming. It's only like 11 degrees, which is like freezing. And anyway, I was forced in between my mum and her friend, because you know when someone's behind you, you have to just get in, like you've got no choice.
You got to do it.
And yeah, I just got in and it was so cold. Like I was screaming. I felt like I'd been hit with a wooden board. Like that's how my limbs felt. But you know what? It was actually one of the nicest things.
Good.
Like when I got out, I was like, I feel like ecstatic. Like I got why people did it after I got out. I was like, I feel high on drugs. It was amazing. Anyway, sidetrack. Yeah. I feel like I do need to like just slightly dive into what I finished this week.
We do.
Because we do like to talk about what we've been reading.
We do.
And this is a cheeky wreck from Phoebe.
When I
just
say
dobbing you in there.
We became obsessed with this, I mean it. Like
podcast prep out the window, all we would voice note is about ACOTAR. And if you don't know what ACOTAR is, it's A Court of Thorn and Roses. There's like 5 or 6 books already. She's bringing out one this year. I just finished A Court of Silver Flames, and I never thought I'd be that girl, but I absolutely lapped it up. And in lieu of what we're talking about today, which is will I have a better life if I'm hot, if it's anything going off these books, yes is the answer.
Yes.
If you are hot, if you are a hot human, you will be taken by a hot fairy and you'll be made queen. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it
goes.
is.
We don't make the rules.
We don't make the rules. That's just what I'm reading. It's pure fact.
We will be going into ACOTAR on a later episode because we just have so much to say about it. We did become obsessed with this. Yeah, a friend recommended it and I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. And then I think I was halfway through the first book and I was like, Lucy, I think you should read this. And then I got halfway through the second book and I was like, Lucy, you need to read this. And then third book, I was like, you
Honestly,
have to read this.
Hook, line and sinker. Hook, line and sinker. I was like, this is a terrible book. This is awful. Oh my God, I love it. I can't stop reading it. It's amazing.
And then the final book, you're like, this is legit great.
I was like, actually, like this, I don't know how I'm going to wait until the end of the year. And people are like, I've been waiting since 2021.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
don't know her. I really wanted to kick off this episode with an article from The Guardian. It was called The Cost of Beauty, the Growing Investment in Appearance. And basically a quote from the article is that people think that looking better means you will have a better life. Focuses in on Hazelwood, a 28-year-old influencer who spends around £500 a month on grooming. So this includes pedicures, manicures, eyebrow lamination, lashes, Botox. She basically goes on to explain, it makes me feel as though I'm showing up as my best self. When I don't feel I've made myself look very nice, I struggle to feel confident and productive and also have a hard time interacting with people. And in another piece by the same author, she goes on to kind of say, you know, I want to ignore beauty culture, but I'll never get anywhere if I don't look a certain way. And this article again focuses on the paradox of beauty culture, where conventional attractiveness provides social and professional advantages, but demands significant investment in time, money, energy, and brain space. And what was really interesting is that a survey of 3,200 people revealed while some believe their looks have positively influenced their opportunities, many actually go on to regret time and the financial cost spent, with several respondents experiencing anxiety, low self-esteem, and financial strain due to beauty culture. Just want to stop on this for a moment. Kind of, are you shocked by that figure that influencer spoke about?
I was listening to you reeling off how much Hazel spends on beauty, and I was kind of thinking like, yeah, that's kind of standard. Like you think of like going for a manicure, pedicure, you're just like, yeah, 40 quid here, 40 quid there. You don't realise that those things do rack up throughout the month. And, you know, so many girls I know will have their lashes done, they'll have their nails done. And, you know, a lot more people are getting Botox, and it's becoming a lot more normal to see people get Botox. And yeah, that is not surprising to me. But what is shocking is the number at the end, because I think if I started, you know, I sometimes go down that route of, oh, I'm going to get my gels done and my nails done. And I've got into that kind of habit of getting a lash lamination and a brow lamination. And by the time you know it, you've spent like 200, 300 quid. And like, it's quite addictive. Like every time I see myself with like new lashes, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a different person. Like I'm hot now. Like I'm going to go and get it again, you know? And like, if I did that every single month, like I have to stop myself, because that is an extortionate amount of money. But I can see how people are dragged into that. And especially if you feel like your place of work is dependent on how you look, and you feel like you get a better response from your co-workers and your employer just from the way you present yourself, and, you know, your face being snatched and your lashes being long and your hair being long and extensioned. You know, if you feel like you're getting a positive response from that, then you are just going to continue doing that, even if you can't particularly afford it, or you're spending that money on beauty instead of something maybe you necessarily need that you're putting off, like, I don't know, a new couch or a new table, you know, like things that I don't know, you know, things that maybe you're like, oh, I should really get that fixed, but I need to look better for work because I need to progress in my career, or I need to show up for my friends and I need to present myself in this way because that's what society has told me to do.
Definitely. And I think also it's a snowball effect as well, isn't it? Because like you get your nails done, that's like 40 quid. It's actually quite expensive here in Australia, weirdly. Like a pedicure, that's 40 quid. And then, you know, maybe you get your lashes done, maybe that's 60 quid. And it's like in probably isolation, it's not cheap, but they're kind of like chunks of money. But then they generally, like with these treatments, it snowballs and you're like, oh, I'll get my lashes done. That means I'll get my brows done. I'll have my hands done. I'll have a manicure. That means I get a pedicure. And then before you know it, it's like, you know, snowballed into like easy 250 quid, £300 a month.
And it always starts off as, I'll just get a manicure. And then they're like, oh, do you want to, you know, add a design to each nail? Do you want to have nail extensions? Do you want to have lash extensions? Like it might start off as lamination, like, and then it might add, you know, these things that there's so many add-ons that you can do as well. It's always like, and for women as well, especially, I feel like even for myself, like, you get the lamination, you get your eyelashes to look a certain way, and you're like, there's always something more you can do. There's always something more you can add to that service, and there's always something more you can add to your eyebrows to make them more snatched. There's always something more you can do to make your hair look nice. Like there is almost endless opportunities to make yourself look better.
The goalposts just keep moving as well, don't they? It's like what the beauty standard was 1 minute. It's now like, how can we just edge that further away from everyone to spend more money, to make it even less attainable? And the only way you get there is by leveling up your expenditure. I think another bit to zoom in on is obviously some respondents shared experience of anxiety or low self-esteem due to beauty culture. Do you think just kind of top level you felt that at any point? Like, do you feel like those goalposts keep moving and you're spending more to kind of hamster on a wheel, keep up with it?
Yeah, I think I've definitely found myself in that wheel of just kind of like, okay, I want to, improve my makeup skills. I want to improve my hair, curling ability and all those kind of things. Like I'm not necessarily on the wheel of, getting procedures and all this kind of thing. But when I have, like I said before, like when I have had my lashes done or I've had my eyebrows done, I do feel that kind of like, oh my God, I know I looked so much better when I had that done. And now people are looking at me like, where's her eyelashes gone? Where are they? Where's her eyebrows? They're like, because my eyebrows are naturally like translucent. So like if I don't dye them or if I don't do anything with them,
They
they're
disappear.
just the same colour as my skin and no one can see
I look
them.
like an egg. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like, that's constantly in my head. And obviously with, respective skin conditions and things like that add to that pressure of trying to look good. Like not only are you trying to maybe enhance your cheekbones with Botox or, getting yourself a brow lift or whatever it is that you want to do to improve your physical appearance. There's also that pressure of, yeah, I've got bad skin or I've got a medical condition that I need to hide at the same time. And I think for women especially, like that's difficult because you're expected to wear makeup. You're expected to present yourself in a specific way, especially in the workplace. And there's always that classic thing of if you don't wear makeup, you come, for one time in the office, you'll come in and someone will be like, are you okay?
Are you sick?
Are you ill?
Yeah,
Are you
100%.
sick? Like, and that is something you experience as a woman, and I'm sure you have. I definitely have, but it's also something that you witness other women going through. Like, I was at work the other day, and somebody said to someone else, "Oh, you look really ill. Like, are you all right?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'm okay. Do I look really bad?" And I was, you're just like shrinking in your seat. Like, I've been there. I understand it, but does that ever happen to a man?
Yeah, no.
I've never seen it. I've only ever seen it from a woman. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you're enjoying Shallow Podcast, it wouldn't be shallow of you to give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and it would mean the world to me and Phoebe. Thanks.
Going into the workplace, as you teed it up so beautifully, researching this episode, this was the bit that actually really, really depressed me. So there's something called the beauty premium in the workplace, and Daniel Hammermesh, who is the author of Beauty Pays, highlights a significant beauty premium in professional settings. So from his book, attractive individuals tend to earn up to $230,000 more in their career, enjoy quicker promotions and broader career success, which I thought was wild. Like to have a quantitative number against literally if you're conventionally attractive, this is how much more you can earn, because it almost makes me think like the women, let's talk about focus on women here. If you're investing in your appearance, you could almost frame that as like, is it going to come back and pay me dividends? If I tweak here and there and I become a more conventionally attractive individual, in quotes, am I going to get paid more throughout my career? Is that money going to find its way back to me?
It's just confirming everything. If you're feeling a bit like, oh, maybe I'm spending a bit too much money on this. Maybe this is a problem. I'm feeling so anxious all the time and maybe I should just not care about what I look like. And then you'll see an article like that and you'll be like,
I want to throw up.
Yeah. Point and case. And case.
And then going on to a Forbes study, this was in 2021, so a little while ago, but I think the results still stand. So on 752 economists found that more attractive individuals attend higher ranked PhD programs. They secured better jobs faster and maintained that advantage throughout their careers. Attractive economists published more frequency and received more citations, and the bias was particularly strong for women, suggesting looks play a significant role in academic and professional success, which again, it just kind of floored me because I was just like, obviously that's a very kind of book smart, these are economists. You almost think that maybe naively that people in those fields maybe wouldn't prioritize these things. And maybe that's me being very generalist and actually just, obviously I'm totally wrong, but you think kind of science, economy, classic like a physicist, like what, like you just don't think these things are prioritized in these kind of fields. When I think about the fields that they are prioritized in, I maybe go to like, social media, influencing, like maybe a bit more, traditionally surface level kind of industries.
It really takes those sayings like, don't judge a book by its cover, and it's what is on the inside that counts. It really takes stock out of those sayings, really, doesn't it? And especially like, people are always saying, it's always what's on the inside. Like, make sure you're a good person, make sure you're a nice person, make sure, that's all that matters. And your intelligence is the thing that will, propel you through life and get you those jobs and help you in life. And then you'll see things like this, and you'll see studies like this that are undertaken, and it does deflate you in a way, because it's just confirming what we already know, because this is a lived experience for most women, and it's something that you're acutely aware of when you walk into an office or when you go to a job interview, for example. Of course you have to look smart, of course you have to look presentable, whether you're male or female, but there is that kind of edge of, if I look really nice, could this possibly go my way a little bit further? And you do have those thoughts. And it is funny, there's that kind of, maybe it's a bit of a joke, but, you walk into the interview room and, as a woman, is another woman. And you're like, oh. Well, there's that like kind of running joke of like, oh, yeah. But that in a way, like as sexist and misogynistic as that is, as a thought and a concept, it's real, and it happens. And it's something that people go through and women go through every day.
So going into the psychology behind it, this is actually called the halo effect. So the halo effect is a cognitive bias where we assume that physically attractive people also possess positive traits. So we basically instantly assume that they're kind, they're intelligent, and they're, possess good social skills, even without knowing them. So almost kind of the Ted Bundy example, like, he's attractive, how could he possibly be a serial killer? It's that kind of instant cognitive bias about, we see someone, they look a certain way, and we're like, you must be XYZ. And how that can impact, an interview setting is the perfect example, because, you rock in, put together, the interviewer is probably going to instantly assume you're a put together individual.
I can add to that because it really makes me think, and it takes me back to school days. You have the popular kids, and usually the popular kids are fairly attractive, and they're quite conventional, and they like to straighten their hair, and they've got into makeup for the first time, and they're taking these things that we're worried about as me, and they're worried about the same things as 14-year-olds, and they kind of attract each other in a way. And it was always the kind of popular girls or the popular group in a school, they're usually the most conventionally attractive, and that kind of like feeds into the whole kind of like, well, they must be the most normal, they must be the most approachable, they must be the kindest and the nicest, and that kind of thing, and they're the most popular, and the ones that don't fit into that category are the slightly weirder people, or the people who don't fit in as well and don't conventionally look as attractive. And you can't, it's obviously horrible to say that about children, but children are horrible, and they say horrible things to each other. And that kind of grouping, and that kind of like the way that people band together, it's not just in school, it does feed into
it follows
adult life.
100%. I think that's something you think about, isn't it? Is that you think so much stuff will be left in the playground, and you really quickly learn that it's not. And like, even in work and a corporate existence, it's just high school 2.0. And I think, going back to that kind of popular analogy, like, it's so true. It's like you'd get the group of guys and girls who'd band together, and they'd generally be the most attractive kind of group in the school, and that kind of carries on into your adult life, I guess, doesn't it? There was a great quote I love, actually, from Dolly Alderton from Everything I Know About Love. She was talking about her disordered eating and how society's reaction was actually overwhelmingly positive when she was essentially thinner, and the quote was, "My weight was down, but my stocks were up." And I think that is it's depressing, but it's a most beautifully succinct way to describe how we respond to thinness and conventional attractiveness, is that as a society we are so much quicker to be like, you must be, literally the halo effect, you must be XYZ because you look a certain way and you're taking up a certain amount of space.
I really love that you've brought that quote into it, because when I read it, I have read that book and it is lovely, and it really does resonate with being a woman and, you know, lived experience. And when I thought about that quote, I thought about a time when I went through a really horrendous breakup and I lost a lot of weight very, very quickly. And it wasn't for, you know, going to the gym, going running, eating healthily. It was because I was not looking after myself. I was not eating properly. I was not exercising, and I was really depressed. And I remember, you know, going into university, going into work, and the constant confirmation from people of, you look amazing, you've lost so much weight, you look great. Like, it was this constant, like, oh my God, have you lost loads of weight? You look great. Like, you look really, really good. Like, what's happened? What have you been doing? Like, it was constant. It was constant. My weight was probably brought up every single day. So when I read that in this book, which is quite a large part of this book, is about that time in her life where she was getting basically confirmation from everyone around her that what she was doing was fine, and then basically feeding into her ED. And you know, luckily I kind of was brought up of that time with, you know, good friends and surrounding myself with good people, and, you know, I did start to put on weight and start to get back to my usual self, but it was really damaging at that time. And I think that is a lot of, you know, this is what a lot of women go through as well. You know, there's a lot of lived experiences here for everyone. I imagine people sitting at home like, yeah, that was me. And, you know, I could probably speak to, you know, you or another friend, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had a very similar experience as well.
Definitely. I think that's why I think it's why the book resonated so well. But also I think, you know, everyone's had that kind of post-breakup glow up that was probably in reality caused by very damaging habits of like, I'm so stressed, I'm not eating, and almost, society's reaction to that being so positive that it almost like fuels the fire. It's like, well, I'm just going to carry on because everyone's, you know, dealing with me in a certain kind of capacity and they're responding to me so much more positively than they were before, regardless of how they've obtained it, which is quite depressing.
Yeah, it's always that kind, and people don't really stop and think before they say these things. I think that's another thing that, you know, a lot of people had known that I'd gone through a breakup, but it's that kind of, and I don't blame them for it. I just think it's that kind of instant, you know, societal reaction to somebody losing weight that we're so accustomed with, you know, growing up and seeing, you know, such horrible things said about celebrities who were not overweight, needing to lose weight, or, you know, look how much weight she's lost. Doesn't she look so frail? Or look at her, she's lost so much weight, she looks amazing. And, you know, she's gone through a divorce, or, you know, it's just so ingrained in how we grow up and what we see as we grow up that we don't even think twice when we say those things. And I think, you know, hopefully that'll start to be undone. I think people are more aware of it. Like, you know, like Dolly Alderton is writing about it in a book, for example, and we're talking about it on this podcast. And it is something that hopefully will slowly be undone in a way. But, you know, it's not something that I think is going to go away overnight.
Moving on to productivity and the beauty standard, I really wanted to dive into the dress for success mentality. So obviously this is something that growing up, I mean, even now, like, it's banded around, isn't it? Like, dress for the job you want, not the job you have, dress for success. And there was a really interesting article called The Scientific Reason Why Dressing for Success Works. The idea of dressing for success is based on the psychological impact that our appearance has on both ourselves and others. When we dress in a way that makes us feel good, we project confidence, which in turn makes others perceive us more favourably. I wanted to dive into this for a minute. Do you agree with this? Do you feel more productive when you feel like you look your best? Or is it kind of something that's being leveraged to basically sell us stuff we don't need?
I mean, both. I think it takes me back to kind of the way that 1950s housewives presented themselves. You know, there was the whole, I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but it really portrays very well in that series. So she's this 1950s housewife in New York, and she is so she gets up before her husband, like 3 hours before. She's already got a full face of makeup on. She's taking her rollers out. She's looking pristine. She will get back in bed. He will wake up, look to his left, and she will
I woke
be
up like
completely, glammed up and, ready for the day. And it was that whole thing as well. I think she gets up. She will measure every, like her biceps, she'll measure her thighs, she'll measure her calves every single day. She will take her weight. And this is a routine that 1950s housewives did every single day. And obviously, it's not that extreme. I mean, I have a friend who has not shown her face without makeup to her partner. And they've been together for many years.
You know what? I think
so
Charlotte Tilbury
that still
does
goes
this
on
as well. Like, she's famous for like always having a face of makeup on. I think she said the same, that her husband has never seen her without a face of makeup.
Yeah, and I think it tracks from that time of kind of like, you are there to appear as a beautiful, perfect housewife to your husband, and it kind of it trickles down. And the dress for success thing is kind of a modernized way of portraying that for me. It's because I mean, I will always feel better if my hair is done, if my face is clear, if I've got nice makeup on, if my makeup's when you have one of those days and your hair's just not curling the way it should be, and you're like, oh to your friend or whatever, you're like, I'm gonna have a terrible day now because I don't feel like my hair is sitting in the correct way. We've all been there, we've all had that bad hair day. We've all had that, oh, my eyeliner's gone wonky, but I don't have time to fix it. And that kind of psychologically affects you for the rest of the day. And then you kind of have this snowball effect of bad things happening. And it's not because, maybe the world hates you and is just throwing stuff at you all day that's bad. It's probably because you've set yourself up at the beginning of the day in not a great way because you're not feeling good about your appearance. And I don't know, I mean, we'll have to ask a guy about this, but I don't know whether that's the same thing. A lot of men, I think, in my opinion, just roll out of bed, ruffle their hair, and they're like, oh, sweet, let's go.
Well, yes, so interesting on that, actually. So the Forbes study also goes on to suggest that beauty bias is even stronger for women than it is for men. So yeah, totally. I think men do have the luxury a lot of the time of rolling out of bed and they're good to go. And I think, we've obviously touched on our skin and hair issues till the cows come home. And I know if I'm having a bit of a flare or a bit of a moment and I have to go into work, I'm actually so focused. I feel so self-conscious. And I do struggle to be present and connect because I'm worried about like my skin crawling off my face. But that being said, I think on the productivity side of it, I'm probably more productive working from home in my sweatpants than I am when I go into the office, when I'm probably a little bit more pulled together. So I think I kind of sit on both sides of the fence of like, I probably feel more confident when I've got a bit of a face on and I've got a nice outfit on. I think that all feeds psychologically into feeling more confident. But I think productivity wise, like I'm a hard disagree. I think for me, like I can be more productive in my sweatpants than my jeans.
But would you be productive in your sweatpants in the office?
Oh yeah, I would love it if I'd wear my sweatpants in the office. Comfort is key. I think obviously, well, look, I don't work in an office where I can wear sweatpants, so I'd probably be very self-conscious. But if they were down for it, like, yeah, I'd get the athleisure out for sure.
I say this, it's so funny because I'm like going on about this, but I work in a job where I can wear basically essentially sweatpants. Like I can wear Lululemon for days. Like I don't need to always wear a really nice corporate outfit. And to be honest with you, the days that I do, because that is part of my job and I drive a lot, so it's just comfortable. I would say when I do wear something a little nicer, I do feel a little bit more like productive at work. I do feel a bit more like I could go and speak to different departments and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like maybe, day to day where I'm just wearing my sweatpants or whatever, I don't really think about it that much. But then when I do put on a shirt, I am like,
yeah, let's go, girls.
So maybe if you do wear sweatpants at work for a bit, maybe we should talk after that.
Mate, let's see
and
how it plays
maybe see
out.
the kind of difference between, you wearing a tracksuit at work and you wearing like a nice shirt and trousers, and we'd see the difference
Productivity
in how you
levels.
feel, because you've never had that opportunity. So how
Let's
do
see
you know?
mate, I'll talk to work. Let's see if we can run that experiment. I'll feed back.
You're like, this is a really important experiment that we need to
This
run.
is really important. Work will be fine with it, I'm sure. So moving on to social media, obviously no surprise, but I think it's fair to say that social media has really amplified the stuff we're talking about. I think, you've got this constant self-evaluation. We're staring at ourselves in filters. We're seeing these insanely hot people living the dream, making money off how they look, or at least that's what it feels like. And for me, I think it has influenced me psychologically, because I think, we see these goalposts moving, we see the beauty standards shifting. And, you open up your phone, I work in marketing, I work in social media, it's very prevalent for me. And I think that, it's just bombarded with hot people like on yachts, having amazing meals, living these dream lives. And I'm just like, what do these guys do? And then you click on their profile and it's just like, model. So it's like, is this the gateway to the dream life, just being attractive?
Yeah, I watched a Netflix documentary the other day called The Life of Baby Influencers, I think.
What?
And it was really eye-opening. It was really good. I think you should watch it. And it was about this girl called Piper Raquel. I think she's maybe 17 now. But it was about how basically her mum, on social media, on YouTube, it was these like baby influencers that had this amazing life, and they were like multimillionaires, and they were basically doing all the things like Jake Paul were doing at the time, and throwing themselves off things, doing crazy things, but it was for children. And
What?
it's from that very early age, you'd have these kids watching these YouTubers who were the same age as them, with loads of money, doing all these pranks, living in this massive house together. And we talk about, like you just said, about you seeing influencers and you're kind of influenced by them, and you're kind of like, oh, how are they living this life? Well, the same is happening with children as well. The children are also watching YouTube, seeing these children who have a lot of money and a lot of success at a very early age. And, whether they're watching that for fun or, all these like baby iPad babies or whatever, and they're watching all these things.
iPad babies.
You don't know what you don't know how that is impacting a child. And like, how are they going to be when they get to our age? If we're feeling like this now, at 28, 29, how are these children going to feel when they get to our age? Like, that blows my mind. And the most worrying part of that documentary was how abusive and how toxic that environment was for those children behind the scenes. And you kind of watch something like that and you think, oh, well, this is not good, clearly. But from the outset, from the YouTube videos, from all, it just seems like a load of kids having fun, together. And it's just not. And it's really scary. And yeah, it's scary for us how we're influenced day to day in the workplace, at university, just out in the street, like going to the shop. I know girls that will not go to the shop without putting a full face of makeup on. And I don't blame them. I'm not like one of those people that's like, oh, can't you just go outside with that? And because I get it. I get that anxiety of people looking at you and expecting something from you in a certain way, even if you're just going to buy milk, it's that expectation that you should look good, you should look perfect. It's the Mrs. Maisel. It's the, I'm going to go and get my ham for my family, when I'm going to walk down the road and I'm going to be fully glammed up, pristine, perfect. And her undoing in that show is basically she's rejecting those societal norms, and she wants to be a comedian, and she doesn't want to follow this path. And she wants to be funny, and she wants to be kind, and she wants to be caring. She wants to be all these other things other than just an attractive housewife. And I think that's kind of what people should take from this. Like, yeah, you might have a better life if you're a little bit hotter, but will you feel good about it? Will that anxiety dissipate eventually? I don't know.
And at what cost as well? Because I think going back to, the girlie is getting the full face on to go get milk. You can't blame them, right? Because if we're responding, if society is responding to them in a more positive way, that's a little pat on the head being like, you're doing something right, you're doing something good. But then flipping across to kind of like the Miss Maisel of it all, of, let's take a moment and think about what's a better life? How are we defining it? Is it the amount of money you're getting from work, or is it the quality of your relationships, the quality of your friendships, the goodness you project into the world? And I think that's where it starts to get muddied, and you have to kind of, getting a bit deep about it for a second, you have to think about what is more important to you. Wrapping up with that article from The Guardian that we spoke about earlier in the episode, I want to ignore beauty culture, but I'll never get anywhere if I don't look a certain way, goes on to say, caring about my looks has diminishing returns after the 5-minute mark. I genuinely think the quality of my life would be better if I didn't care at all. Thinking about it makes me miserable. Another quote says, money spent on beauty in my early 20s could have been much better invested. Now that I'm divorced, I wish I'd had financial freedom instead. Another goes on to say, I'm still paying off Botox injections because I had to use credit. It was a terrible decision. Letting go of aesthetic labour changed my life. Turns out everyone loves me just the same.
You know what's interesting, while you were kind of reeling off those quotes, I was thinking about, in what situation would I feel good about letting go of all those kind of little beauty things that I like to do for myself? And the answer would be going traveling. And the reason being is because you don't have this pressure of seeing the same people every day. Or if you do, you're not seeing them for very long, and you can go on to the next place and the next place and the next place. And then as I was like kind of thinking about that as you were talking, I was like, that's quite sad. That's the kind of thing that you would give up these little luxuries and these beauty things for, is so you don't have to see these people all the time. So you don't have to present yourself in a certain way, because you don't have that workplace to go to. You don't have that university to go to. You don't have those appointments to attend. And yeah, I think it was interesting just how my kind of brain process was working there. Kind of how were you thinking? Like when you were thinking about that, were you thinking, oh, this is, I agree with this, like this is something that is a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so easy to get lost in the source of it all, isn't it? Of just like, obviously social media has just exacerbated all of this to such a level where we're being fed this unrealistic, unobtainable standard of imagery on a daily basis, and our brains just are not built for it. But reading those quotes, it's so true. Like, I think even when I, had all my allergy stuff and I looked like shit, no one cared. Like, obviously they cared because they wanted to know I was okay, but no one was like, oh, she's gross.
And
I don't want to hang out with her.
And we wanted to know that you were okay.
Yeah, like it was, if you respond to me the same if I'm wearing makeup versus where I'm not wearing makeup, like there is such a deep part of me that says like, it's just not important. But it's very frustrating, especially as a female, when every facet of society kind of feels like it is. But going back to your thing about traveling, I think another thing as well is that when you're traveling, or maybe you're experiencing something new, you're not bothered about how you look because you're out in the world having the sickest time, experiencing new places, meeting new people. And that's so much more important than, getting Botox to zap a fine line because we're so worried about how our boss is going to respond to us. That's an awful example.
Yeah.
But I think that the crux of it is that I think when we're, I don't know, is almost like the most feminist resistant thing you can do is not give a fuck.
I love that. I really love that. End podcast. No, and I was also thinking, like, I don't even get that much done. Like, I just dye my eyebrows, and I just like occasionally get a lash lift, and and I get my nails done. Like, I'm not like adding this extra thing that a lot of women have, which is like a lot of like Botox, or all this kind of stuff that is like more permanent surgical procedures that you wouldn't be necessarily able to do if you went traveling, or if you're restrained to the clinician that you have, or whatever, you're restrained to your little area. And yeah, that is a lot to kind of think about, and to take away from that. How much are we shackled to our beauty and how we look. And is that really our fault? Probably not.
No, it's absolutely not.
Not our fault.
Not my problem. So, final thoughts. Lucy Bell, wrapping up. Do you think it's really that deep? Will you have a better life if you're hot?
I think we pretty much long-windedly answered this in the entire episode, but I think unfortunately the answer is probably. Oh, it's hard.
It's really hard.
I think my first instant reaction is yes. And that's because of lived experience and how people react to you when you look a certain way and you look better. And, maybe you feel like you got an opportunity because someone, liked how you presented yourself. But I don't want to sit here and tell people that you will have a better life if you're hot, because there is so much more to that. There is so much more to life, and there's so much more than how you look. And I think it's really important for two women especially to be sitting here and to be telling, if there's any younger people listening or people our age, that, yeah, your appearance doesn't define who you are as a person. I mentioned the don't judge a book by its cover, or it's what is on the inside that counts. But I connect with people, and I'm sure you do too. I don't connect with people on a day-to-day basis based on how they look. I don't sit here and want to create a podcast with you because you're, insanely hot and beautiful. I want to sit and create a podcast with you because you're kind, you're intelligent, you're funny, we get on, we have this rapport. And that's, I think, what you should take from it. Although your appearance will factor in to your life as a female, and it will, hinder you, and it will, be kind of like a bit of a restraint. It is also something you just kind of have to accept and be aware of. So that brings me on to, I want to know your opinion. Do you think we'll have a better life if we're hot?
As always, I agree with you. I know some people listening to the previous seasons of the pod have been like, do you ever disagree? And I'm like, not really, which I know doesn't make for...
Hey, we disagreed on sweatpants.
Yeah, there we go. It's there, it's on the record. But no, I think I do agree overall. I think my main frustration with it, as we were talking and I was thinking about it and digesting it myself, is the frustration with the spotlight being on how we look. And if we're not spending all this time thinking about it, what else could we be doing with that time, with that brain space, with that brain power? What else could we be focusing on? And I'm seeing it now with this kind of, pivot towards conservatism and this bit of the trad wife kind of thing. It's the focus is on how, the marvelous Miss Maisel. What was it?
The Marvellous Mrs. Maisel.
The Marvellous Mrs. Maisel of it all, which is that we're so focused on, measuring every inch of ourselves and plucking and making sure we're snatched. And actually, that energy could be so much better spent elsewhere. And obviously, we spoke in the other seasons about how everyone's getting very thin, very frail. And it just feels like that our focus and that our energies are on the wrong place. And that's not to say that I think anyone is vapid or less than for worrying about their appearance. We all worry about appearance. Doing this podcast, obviously we're putting some makeup on. We want to present, well. But it does bug me. But overall, I think, if you're conventionally attractive, you're probably going to have a better life. But it also depends on your definition of what is a better life, what ticks the boxes for you, what's fulfilling for you. And I realise that is the long-winded answer. But that's how I feel about it.
Let's wrap it up in this sentence then. Body positivity is out because Ozempic has entered the chat. And now it's time for...
And what a pile of bollocks!
This is the time in the show where we just chat about something really insignificant that makes us mad and pisses us off. And this week is Phoebe's turn, so hit the mic.
It's SNL, baby. It's not funny. Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not. It's just not. Like, I don't understand it. And maybe it's American humor that we're just missing the mark. I feel like as Brits, like, we're quite dry, we're quite sarcastic. I just feel like it's like the only funny skit I have seen on SNL was a Charlie XCX one, and they didn't even air it. It was like, it ended up being on YouTube. It's not funny.
Yeah, and what happened with the White Lotus one they did the other week? Disgusting. Hated that.
So uncalled for. That was gross. Amy Lou Wood must be protected at all fucking costs. Didn't go down well for me. I don't think it's funny. The only good bit of SNL is the musical Guess and when Taylor did All Too Well 10-minute version.
Yeah, and if the only thing you can do that's funny is just insult somebody's appearance, then you're not very funny, are you?
Get in the bin. What a pile of bollocks.
Absolute pile of bollocks.
Thank you so much for listening to Shallow. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave us a review. It makes a huge difference in helping others to discover the podcast. We always want to hear from you, so feel free to slide into our DMs or follow us on Instagram @shallowpod, or send us an email at shallow@boxedoff.studio. Shallow is a Boxed Off production, written and hosted by Lucy Bell and Phoebe Whittle. We'll see you next time.